They've been trying to diminish anybody who dares to bring up this idea that, well, these are real death panels or these end-of-life counseling sessions that they have available for the elderly. As Grassley said, those decisions ought to be made 20 years earlier. Now, it's far from outrageous to suggest that the elderly are going to face end-of-life discussions. Who are these bureaucrats going to be? But according to this bill, if you actually read it, it is mandated and would be mandated by the government. Now, in an interview with Oklahoma television, he said he disagreed with those who say that Governor Palin's claims about a so-called death panel in health care reform legislation were ridiculous. Now, those of us that have taken the time to read the bill realize that Governor Palin is right. And Coburn said that he'd offered 3 amendments seeking an absolute prohibition on rationing based on comparative effectiveness research into treatment, each of which was turned down. He said, why would you not want an absolute prohibition, he said, because you ultimately plan to ration care. Their plan is to control costs by limiting options. So, in other words, he's given them the out as it relates to, not having this end-of-life counseling, and they didn't want to take it. And Charles Grassley says he opposes pulling the plug on Grandma. And the president says, well, no, I really didn't mean that. It's not exactly what I meant. Now, somebody needs to call the White House, and they're circulating these arguments suggesting that Obama's risky health care scheme might lead to death panels, et cetera, et cetera. Well, why don't they take it out of the bill, as was suggested by Coburn? I'm going to tell you something. It is a pretty frightening scenario, especially when you think of the position that the people at the end of their life or in the older years of their life are going to have to sit down with a government bureaucrat every few years. It's pretty amazing. Linda Douglas defends the death counseling, saying mom and dad can't live forever. She actually said this. Do you have that audio, Greg? I think I sent it to you earlier. I don't know. Linda Douglas defended the death counseling provision. Here's what she said.
To give seniors the opportunity to get some professional advice when they want to write a living will, when they want to figure out what they would do at the end of life if anything were to happen. These are such hard conversations for people to have inside their families. Adult children sometimes say, oh, Mom, oh, Dad, you're going to live forever.
Oh, Mom, well, they're basically saying, okay, Mom and Dad, you're not going to live forever. Well, that's our point. A government bureaucrat is going to say, well, you don't want to be a burden on society. Yeah, you don't want to be a burden on your children. Now, Congressman John Mica in Florida said, what we've been saying, the death counselors are in the bill. It's real. And Senator Grassley is saying you should not give a government-run plan, the option to decide when to pull the plug on Grandma. And Governor Palin got this all started, saying, I don't want to live in America, the America I love, in which my parents or my baby with Down syndrome are going to have to stand in front of Obama's death panel so as bureaucrats can decide based on a subjective judgment of their level of, quote, productivity in society, whether they are worthy of such care. Now, where did some of this come from? Well, some of it came from Rambo Deadfish's brother Ezekiel, who was a chief advisor on health care issue to the president. And he said services provided to individuals who are irreversibly prevented from being or becoming participating citizens are not basic and should not be guaranteed. An obvious example, in other words, the health care is not basic and shouldn't be guaranteed. If you're an individual and you're with an irreversible condition that would prevent you from becoming a participating citizen, an obvious example is patients with dementia. I mean, that's frightening. So who's deciding? That's the government. Well, that basically means that, well, you may not be healthy enough to live. We told you the story out of Oregon as well. Folks, I'm telling you, this is why we're only in the beginning of this battle. And while we have had some success, while the polls are now changing, the Democrats, they're not giving up on this. And they are going to push, and they're going to push hard, and they're going to push until they get what they want. And if they don't get your support, they're going to ram it down your throat anyway. So we've got a long way to go here.